Seems like we're being presented this idea that it's inevitable that we're going down this transhumanist AI post-human world. We're going down this conveyor belt towards this future, and I think it's people like you and me are saying, "Look, we don't have to go down this conveyor belt. It's not
No, we don't.
inevitable." But if we were to stay on this dystopian, tyrannical, globalist conveyor belt, where does that lead? Like a generation from now, if we don't make a change and they usher in the future that these elites want,
Hmm.
these technocrats, what are we looking at?
Yeah, so I would encourage people, if they want to essentially know what's planned in that scenario, to go and read the book written by Eric Schmidt, the former Google CEO I mentioned earlier, and Henry Kissinger, called The Age of AI, Our Human Future. So essentially, there they frame a lot of stuff as warnings. But if you have any idea into who Eric Schmidt and Henry Kissinger are, and what they've done in their careers, they don't really seem very concerned about some of the impacts they claim to be concerned about to me, but that's just me personally. But there are some things they say in there that objectively do consider careful consideration. So one of those is that, AI will, they say, invariably lead to a division of society. Essentially, they don't use this term, but I will use it, into classes of haves and have-nots. But the way they define it is a little different. So, sort of this more elite tier would be the people that determine AI's objective function, that program and develop AI and understand what AI does to people. And then the lower class, presumably, would be much larger. And that is the class that AI will act upon, but people will lose the ability to know what AI is doing to them. And they argue that this process of people losing the ability to know what AI is doing to them will happen because of this phenomena they refer to as cognitive diminishment, which is sort of this idea and that's pretty easy to verify. If you don't if you stop doing mental math and use a calculator all the time, it gets harder and harder and harder to do mental math. And the same is true for really like any skill that you don't practice. So they argue that because of the convenience of AI and how it's been creeping into our lives, and I think we've seen this a lot since the advent of generative AI, it will become harder and harder and harder and eventually impossible for people to do certain things, including make decisions for themselves, because the AI will tell you where to go. It will tell you what music to listen to. It will tell you what clothes to buy. And essentially, that's their vision. People will eventually lose the ability to make those decisions for themselves or even develop their own preferences without the assistance of artificial intelligence. And so, obviously, the way to fight against that is to not outsource all of your decision making and skills to that. And unfortunately, I think during it, as we've seen with the rise of generative AI, people are creating less. People are outsourcing their creativity to AI, have AI make art for me, have AI write things for me. And eventually that leads to a world where in a generation, people don't know how to create art or create music or write